Testing.
Yeah, I printed all the stuff from the committee, so.
Testing.
Anything new, right? Really, just renewing the PR and all that.
Test.
Okay.
But I will take it then.
Not working, Chris. Oh, there it is.
Right.
Testing.
There,
The vice chair.
right. Call the work section of the Isabel County Board of Commissioners order.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hutchinson. Commissioner Embry. Commissioner Jalzinski. Commissioner Engler. Commissioner Marino. Commissioner Swaney. Commissioner Hope. All present, Mr. Chairman.
Clerk, up next would be approval of the agenda. We'll start the meeting with general public comments. And then under presentations and special reports, consider approving the Isabel County Commission on Aging millage, the medical care facility millage, the Parks and Recreation millage, and the Isabel County Transportation Commission millage. And then a presentation on the fiscal year 2025 recommended budget and administrator controller report. We have no appointments to boards or commissions. Brings us to committee reports, Finance and Administration Committee.
Finance Administration Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Criminal Justice and County Affairs.
Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
And Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Human Resources and Public Works Committee is all set. I just wanted to say I'm really glad to be back. I had COVID and flu and I feel a lot better now.
Good, good. We're glad to have you back. We have no intergovernmental affairs, no administrator controller issues, no unfinished business. Under new business, a few items. I have the 2023 annual report from the county medical examiner. And then we'll consider scheduling a public hearing on the fiscal year 2025 proposed budget. And then special meeting for the purpose of considering a revised L 4029 for the winter tax levy on Wednesday, November 6th. And then there will be another opportunity for general public comment and announcements and then adjournments. Those are motions to approve the agenda.
So moved, Marino.
Support Hutchison.
And supported, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good. We have an agenda. And up next is general public comment. Please limit your comment to 3 minutes. The board will not engage in immediate discussion. May possibly ask questions for clarification. One for general public comments. Okay, seeing no one for general public comment, we'll get right into presentations and special reports. And item A is consider approving the fiscal year 2025 budget millage for Isabel County Commission on Aging at 1 mil. Jennifer Crawford, Director.
There. Last year was the first year, fiscal year 24 was the first year that I had requested an increase in our millage, what we would levy. We went up to the 1 mil, and so we're just completing our first year at that amount. And the reason I had requested that before is because ever since the indirect fee became a thing for all of us departments that were self-funded. The Commission on Aging was operating on a deficit budget every year for that, almost the amount of that fee. And so, you know, wishing to no longer be operating on a deficit budget, I did request that increase to the 1 mil, and we're doing well this year. I would like to ask that we continue at that amount for now so that we can truly see going forward what that's going to look like for Commission on Aging at this point. I do believe we should have at the end of the year. So right now our budget, we have approximately a $3.5 million budget. Of our revenues, the property tax is certainly our largest funding source that we have. But that is, we do have multiple funding streams. We have 14 different funding streams that we are able to bring money into the Commission on Aging with grants, federal, state, and our local dollars as well. And so with this budget, it would fund 37 total positions here at Commission on Aging. 20 of those are full-time, 17 part-time. That does include the part-time position that I requested in our fiscal year 25 budget as well. So with all of that, I'm anticipating a surplus of about $90,000 for our budget. And with that, I would love to be able to have that as a contingency here for us as well, so that if something is done with the wage study, we do have funds that we're able to roll some of that out for our staff.
Okay. Any questions for Director Crawford? Don't see any questions. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Director Crawford.
Okay, next item B would be consider approving the fiscal year 2025 budget millage for Isabella County Medical Care Facility at 1 mil. Elisa Haynek, Administrator.
Hi, I also have our accountant, Philip Alt with us. We'll write our names here. We are asking to keep our full mill for our budget for the upcoming fiscal year as well. You know, after COVID, we did need to use some of the funds for the new millage. I think this was voted back in 2022 for operating. We're now operating in the positive since COVID. But there's several capital expenditures in the future that we need to be doing to the building. We did spend a little over 800,000 of those funds already for systems, boilers and things like that. You know, some of our building is from 1965, but a lot of it is coming up on like 20 years old, where, you know, boilers and different things, heat exchange units and things are needing to be replaced. Resident flooring, you know, we still at some point need to tackle that 65 area of the building and all that plumbing. So this next fiscal year would be more to, we have a project that we're looking at that would be right around the 1.5 to 2 million, which would be to bring our laundry in-house in the facility. We send it out to a place near Detroit and it's not ideal. We can't use the products we want to use, the sheets we want to use, because they only provide what they provide. It would also bring a couple full-time employees, you know, from the area into our building to provide that service, and it would just be a better service. So with that and future capital expenditures, we are asking for our full mill again this year.
Questions? Yes.
Do you have an estimate on future capital outlay for facility?
We're working on like a 5 and 10 year plan right now. I don't have all those numbers, but with the 800,000, we did a lot of large, you know, I'm not a maintenance person, so engineer type building repairs with big systems like our like I said, our heat, we did some door and security camera. Boilers was a big one. That project alone was about half of that, 800,000. So I have I don't have all systems out right now. I've been working with the architects and the engineers to get like a 5, 10, 20-year layout.
Yes, I'm curious about bringing the laundry in-house. How, is that comparable to what you're spending now to send it out? Or
It would be
how's-
less expensive
Okay.
to have it in-house.
That's always good.
Yeah. We previously had a daycare that was renting space in the front of our building, and that space is vacant. And so we can kind of do some minimal rearranging of some of the support services that we have near our maintenance and laundry right now, which is just like locker rooms and stuff. And get enough machines and stuff in-house. It would be a savings to have it in-house.
Any other questions?
Yeah. So you mentioned two employees to run that. Are those two full-time employees, or is it a part-time, or is it?
No, I think it would be 2 full-time, because to do all the laundry in-house, we would probably have to do some off-hours laundry as well. The staff we have right now is doing personal laundry, residence laundry. One thing that isn't really measurable either is when you lose the sweatshirt that your granddaughter bought you on our trip to Disney. And when we have bedding going out, it's impossible to not accidentally have personal clothing going out. And that really, it's heartbreaking actually, because we do lose people's laundry. And a lot of times it's a sentimental blanket or one with pictures on it, or, you know, the sweater they got on a trip with somebody. And so that is just impactful as well. But it would definitely be a savings to do it in-house.
Are the employees under the at the Metal Curve facility under our plans? Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Turn my thing on, mic on. Can you, as long as I got you here, what is your facility as far as that capacity, waiting list? Or can you go into just real quick on that?
Our census, has been, this year has been 5% occupancy. Capacity right now is we can take up to 93 residents. Depending on people's need, we could have a waiting list. We usually have quite a few people wanting in the secure unit. So we usually do have a waiting list for that. But you know, not as much, as long as we can provide the services that somebody needs. And we're still doing quite a bit of, you know, short-term rehab. About 15 to 20% of that is people coming with a surgery or just were weak because they were in the hospital, and then they come and go.
Yeah.
With the increase in people and the age of your residents increasing quite a bit, can you keep ahead of that curve, right? Like this, like more people wanting to be there, and
Yeah, like,
more
can we,
population.
yeah, I mean, I usually have some open beds, so I can continue to take people if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
And because we do the short-term rehab, you know, we turn over quite a few people. I mean, a lot of people that come for that only stay for 2 weeks.
That's good to know.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. And up next is item C, consider approving the fiscal year 2025 budget millage for Isabella County Parks and Recreation at 0.35 of 1 mil. Alexis Hanson, Director. You don't have to sign in.
I just wanted to put his name for the.
Okay,
Thanks, Alyssa.
thanks.
Hello.
Hi.
So this request from Parks is a pretty familiar request. We are asking for the full 0.35 mils, which has been the request since 2012 when this millage was first passed by Isabella County voters. It also feels familiar because we've spent, the last several months discussing with the community why we need this funding. So, as we all know, expenses continue to rise for operations of all sorts. And we have a couple projects coming up this year that do have grant support, but we need upfront cash flow while we wait for reimbursement on those projects. We also potentially have the Coldwater Lake Sewer Project moving forward in the next year. And those are really the only things that we've budgeted as large capital expenses. So even with a conservative budget that we put forward this year, we're still looking at, sorry, let me just find these numbers. Roughly $2.1 million expense budget and then bringing in 1.7 million in revenues. So we do need the funding, and we have a brand new 5-year master plan with input from the community with a lot of really great projects coming up. And so for us to have this stability and this stable funding and to be able to allocate it to some of these future projects and current operating needs is really important for our department.
Okay, any questions for Director Hanson? Yes, sir.
I don't have a question. I just want to say, I think your packet for the millage and the way the Parks and Recs presented for the millage was great and should be used as a template for the county for other millages as well.
Thank
So
you
I
very
want,
much. I appreciate that.
I'll second that.
I will pass that along to
Okay.
the whole staff. It was a team effort.
Fantastic job.
Thank you.
We have some beautiful parks and this millage cost me for my house with a $70,000 taxable value, cost me $24.50.
And I will say that's the goal with where it's at, is to keep it affordable for taxpayers and then also keep park fees affordable for park users as well. So I think right now we have a pretty nice balance there, and that's the goal, to continue that.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
You.
Up next is item D, consider approving the fiscal year 2025 budget millage for Isabella County Transportation Commission at 0.8620 of 1 mil. Rick Collins, Executive Director.
Good day, evening, whatever time this is. I have submitted to this board our budget for the next year, as well as the last 6-year budget history that we've operated. That's 1 year more than I typically have included, but I felt because of COVID, if you look at the numbers, you can see there's a drastic difference from 2019 going into 2020 when a half year of COVID, 2021 when we had a full implementation of COVID. And now you can see through our budget numbers that we have increased service a little bit every year since COVID, coming back to a pre-COVID level is what we're looking at. So because of the decrease in service, we had some saving grace that our miles and our hours went way down because of COVID. So while the expenses were increasing per unit, the number of units we were spending were decreasing because of the pandemic. Now we're entering a state in which we're now post-pandemic. We see services continuing to increase, the demand for service continuing to increase. So as we see that, we're going to see more miles on the road, more hours on the road, more passenger trips per year, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously that all has a cost. So those costs are going to start catching us now. You can also see through that budget history where our fund balance appeared from. There is a period of time during COVID in which the federal government implemented different COVID dollars, CURSA funds, other different types of relief funds through COVID. The MDOT, the Department of Transportation, chose to send those federal dollars to the transits through federal operating assistance, but all that came after the budget cycles were already finished. So we had no way of expecting those dollars for 4 years. And because of that, we also did not spend those dollars because we didn't have the projects lined up. We didn't have the revenue on the radar. It wouldn't have been financially prudent, in my opinion, to spend those dollars without having any long-term know-how of whether those funds were going to continue or not. So those were all invested during those times. Meanwhile, we have different capital projects going on. Right now, we have RFPs out for radio equipment. We need to replace our radios. We need to replace all of our computer equipment, though we have an RFP out for that. And we also are going out for RFP for our accounting and our payable software. So we have those projects going on. Our administrative team is very small. I can't do a lot of procurements at once. So we got to do it one at a time, essentially. Another reason why that fund balance is there, because as time allows, we can do these things in prudent matters and do right by the taxpayers and spend those dollars in wise fashions. So going into our 2025 budget, this is our revised budget. As I alluded to, the state requires our budget to be submitted to the Transportation Commission by December of last year. So I submitted my 25 budget in December of last year. At that time, MDOT directed us to expect 40% reimbursement for state operating assistance. Well, 4 or 5 weeks ago, we got the directive that it's now time. We're not going to have 40%. The state finalized their budget and the reimbursement rate that we're going to expect. I budgeted for 40%. The actual number we should expect now is 35%. So we had to go back from our originally submitted budget just in the last recent weeks and with the Transportation Commission, and we redeveloped about $808,000, give or take a few, out of our budget, and the budget that you all have is a reflection of that. So the $6.9 million roughly that we intend to spend in fiscal year 25 is a modest 2.3% increase over the money we budgeted for this current year. With the rate of inflation, we're trying to keep it as conservative as we can. Even at the 0.862 in which we're asking for, there's some concern whether we'll be able to live within our budgeted expenses with negotiations beginning to start. Next week, actually, we start labor negotiations at IRIDE. So that's what I have. I can go on all night, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you mentioned talking about COVID. Is ridership, what is it compared to pre-COVID? Are we up to the levels now or are we exceeding that?
We right now are probably about 60% pre-COVID. In 2019, we carried somewhere around 500 and some thousand passenger trips. This last year, we had 308,000 passenger trips roughly. This year, we expect to exceed that. So I would say somewhere between 60 and 75% finishing FY24, we should be about ridership levels.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Collins. Up next then, item E is Isabella County Administrator Controller Nicole Frost to present the fiscal year 2025 recommended budget.
Hi, so there are extra copies up here if you don't have one in front of you and won't want to see the level of detail in there. I'll try to make this as brief as I possibly can. I know that the budget has been a lot more relevant this year than in past, so I do feel like the commission's a lot more up to speed this year than generally speaking at budget presentation time. I don't think you'll see a lot of surprises in here. We've been talking about this for a long time. So obviously the budget work on the fiscal 25 budget really started at the beginning of the year, and we've developed what we think is basically a roadmap to long-term fiscal stability. The budget is balanced with no use of fund balance, and this was necessary to achieve a sustainable amount of county spending going forward. So I feel like we've right-sized county finances, or at least it's well underway at this point. And we really need to focus on long-term fiscal health and pay attention to any of our legacy costs going forward, right? And I think that'll position the county well. So the fiscal 25 recommended budget stands balanced at just over 24,570,000. One of the biggest challenges we had to the 25 budget was the increase in healthcare premiums. We were looking at a flat out renewal of our existing healthcare benefits with Blue Cross, renewal of about 21% increase. Obviously not sustainable. Luckily, the employee healthcare committee members have been working for almost 2 years now, well-educated, doing their research. And as you know, at the last meeting, they brought forward recommendations for change. So we were looking at an increase of over 900,000, and through the changes that were implemented, a change to the Simply Blue PPO from our Community Blue plan, staying with self-insured prescriptions with Arrow RX, but we're moving to MetLife for dental, vision, life and disability, and continuing with our 3 HRA plans, A, B, and C, with Plan C still offered free to employees. That was important to the committee. And these changes, instead of 21%, still represent just over a 10% increase, but an increase of 450,000 instead of the 900,000. So we have lots of changes coming. The Simply Blue change is effective October 1, but employee cost shares will remain the same through the end of the year. So we'll have some communication come out certainly to help set those employee expectations. Something we started doing last year or the year before, we're including employee cost shares in the budget packet. So starting January 2025, when those changed, employees in here will see what those changes are. Also, a couple of years ago, we started to include the PA 152 resolution in the budget packet. So you'll see that in there. And that resolution states that the commission is opting out of the PA 152 requirements. That way you don't have to choose hard caps. You don't have to choose 80-20. You can set that employee cost share at something different. We are now at just over $5 million spend on healthcare. So presents a big opportunity going forward for a lot of savings. Hopefully, we can, I know that the Employee Insurance Committee will continue to research, but we'll definitely have to look at self-insured medical going forward. Those employee cost shares are set at not 80-20, but plans A, B, and C. Again, C is free. Plan B is at about a 5% cost share. Plan A is about 11% cost share. And this year, starting 2025, we have aligned those cost shares more with the illustrative rates that we receive from those quotes, rather than just deciding what those amounts would be. They're actually correlated to the level of benefit, which is exciting. We can be consistent with that going forward.
Just quick question. So, what's the change? Is there a change in the monthly rate for the employee for this cost? 11%, and how's that different from what like, do we go from 100 to 123?
Almost, you almost hit it, on the head there. Let me get some compares. And I will. So current, so just to give you an example, obviously C is not changing. Most of our employees are on Plan A. So I'll just talk about Plan A, cost shares. Single currently is at $32.90 per pay. Please, Melissa, make sure to check me on this. And that will be going January 1st, for our payroll deduction starting January, $41.25 per pay. So minimal increase. However, another change we're making is we're right now currently, we take employee cost shares from 24 of the 26 pays. Starting January, we'll be taking the cost share from every pay. So there won't be those couple of pays where the employee might see an increase in their paycheck because they don't have that deduction. The insurance committee thought that was a better way, to smooth it out.
Right. Okay. So we can't look at increased costs by month. So,
Correct. So additional for that scenario for a single Plan A, $282.90 for the year increase. 2-person currently pays $78.11 per pay, going up to $99 per pay starting January 1st. That's a total of $699.36 extra for the whole year. And a family Plan A currently at $99.74 per pay for 24 pays, going to $123.74 per pay, an increase of $823.48 per year. I think that's kind of what you're looking for.
exactly. Thank you.
Not insignificant.
I missed it. What
But
was the
not
increase
insurmountable.
for a 2-person for the year?
Sure. For the whole year, $699.36. Great question. I'm glad that we're making that part of the budget document now. It's known at budget time. Employees should know at budget time. Moving on to another challenge that we fund in general fund, and that's retirement expenses, right? I'm on page 6. If you are following through, I'm just working through the transmittal letter on page 6 of the document. So we have 2 retirement systems at the county, right? The traditional defined benefit pension. The county makes a predetermined flat monthly payment to MERS for that defined benefit pension. Well over $200,000 a month. And then in fiscal year 25, the total that the county will send to MERS for the pension is just over $2.6 million. The other retirement we have is the defined contribution plan, and the county allocates a percentage of actual payroll in that scenario for defined contribution. County makes a 7% match. Employees match 2 or 3% of payroll based on their bargaining unit for defined contribution, and they cost share 0 to 3.9% for their defined benefit plans. Again, based on the union that they're in. Next page is we talk about general fund revenues. Certainly property tax by far is our largest revenue. We know during the zero-based conversations, we talked about taxes being 55% of revenue, and that was a number that we threw around quite readily, and we all knew that percentage. Now that general fund total has decreased, guess what? Taxes are a bigger percentage of our revenues. now about 62%. Estimated, just a hair over 17 million in property tax levied from the county's 6.61 mills. But some of that is captured, through TIFAs and, DDAs. I suppose this might be I was gonna talk about it in my administrator controller report. This is fine time to talk about it. I know at the last meeting, we had some questions about TIFAs and DDAs and why do we have to have that language in there and why are we allowing them to take a portion of that? We allow it because we legally have to. By state statute, that language about those potential captures of tax dollars has to be in the ballot language. We have to have that in there by statute, except for the county operating millage question. That statutorily has to be worded a different way. But suffice it to say, this is the way a DDA, Downtown Development Authority, or a TIF, a tax increment financing, would work. You would have a district established with boundaries, and inside that district, you would have base values in the beginning year on those properties. Certain investments would take place on those properties, and that increase in taxable value would cause that property owner to pay more in taxes. But a TIFA or DDA captures that increase. We still get the base, the taxing authority still gets that base value on those properties. The TIFA or DDA just captures the extra, and they take that money and they reinvest it in that district, right? So the base values throughout that whole period, they don't experience any growth. And the growth that does happen just gets poured back into that district. So it's allowable. Those things can't happen without those districts coming to, say, the taxing authority or the Board of Commissioners in this instance for that purpose. Their 20-year plans, 30-year plans when they come back to extend those. So that's what those are. Happy to talk about those or answer any questions anybody has about those. Utility scale wind farms still bringing in lots of revenue. In the fiscal 25 budget, we have $1,683,143 attributed to utility scale wind turbines, and another $250,000 attributed to solar industrial personal property tax. State shared revenue is almost 1.5 million in this budget and is the same amount that we have received in the current fiscal year. Other major revenue, Director Crawford talked about the indirect costs that some of our outside funds pay to the general fund. So those are Commission on Aging, Parks and Rec, Central Dispatch 911, our Building Inspections Fund, Materials Recovery Facility, and our MIDC, our Indigent Defense Fund. So those total indirect costs paid to general fund in 2025 total just over 713,000. And remember, that is to recoup the costs of doing business at the county for those internal service departments like the county treasurer, like administration, like IT, like facilities. We also have a couple of transfers in, no dollars in here, transferred in from delinquent tax, revolving fund as had been our practice. There's 2 transfers in here from outside fund. One is the CDBG fund, the Community Development Block Grant. If you'll recall, Director Nieport brought forward in the zero base, one of the ideas to increase revenues was to have that fund cover some of the admin costs of operating the fund. So that transfer in is 7,500 from CDBG, and also a transfer in from the clerk's concealed pistol license fund in the amount of $61,272 to help fund her full-time position. Salaries and wages, this was interesting to me. Haven't really changed much. They make up about 33% of general fund, and fringe benefits another 25%. Interestingly enough, those percentages really didn't change from last year's budget. That was interesting. Yes, sir.
Chair, I'd like to have, I talked about having a conversation about COLA. Would you like to wait till the end or right here where we're talking about salaries and wages?
Maybe we'll wait till the end.
I thought,
Since you brought it up, there, and it is spelled out right here in the letter, there is no cost of living allowance built into the fiscal 25 recommended budget. There's only one general fund capital project that's, well, I guess it was the only one really requested in the general fund. We have the 5-year capital improvement plan in the budget document, and you'll see a lot of the projects that were to be done in the next fiscal year are getting rolled into the county administration building rehab project. So the one general fund capital project that's in here is $40,000 for recovering of the trial court roof. Facilities Director Shoemaker tells us that this will save money down the road, right, by recovering it now. Facilities Department budget also includes $75,000 for unforeseen capital expenditures. General fund debt service, we only have one current debt service that's funded out of general fund. That's the sheriff's office and correctional facility USDA bond. And we have built into the 25 recommended budget, $1,551,000. That's the annual debt service on that bond. We also have 250,000 built into the recommended budget for debt service on the anticipated financing of the county admin building rebuild project. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The appropriations are spelled out on page 9. These are the appropriations from general fund. Counts for over $2 million of expenses. In the past, we haven't spelled these out, but we thought it was valuable this year. So GIS receives an appropriation from general fund in the amount of $10,416. Next year, we anticipate Friend of the Court fund requiring an appropriation of $315,000. Law library is $19,500. Child care fund budgeted at $550,000. Materials recovery facility budgeted at $315,000. Indigent defense, public defender Town Houseman will tell you our match is $240,306.09. I think it is. Community corrections is budgeted to have an appropriation of $33,000. Community mental health is at $216,300. You remember them referencing that at the last meeting. That $216,300 is what it is, and it's been that. And you see the ROI that we get on that number that doesn't change. Central Michigan Health Department, we are appropriating $458,998. Recommended budget also includes transfers out to the Isabella County Sheriff's Office and Correctional Facility Construction Fund to cover the county's costs not financed on the project. So that's our match, that's our portion. So outstanding issues, moving right along. We have an untested zero-based budget. We talked about this budget initially springboarded off of the zero-based budget exercise. Obviously, we did this to balance the general fund without any use of fund balance. And we started that process at the beginning of the year. It required input of every county department, even some of our outside partners, required making distinctions between mandated and non-mandated services. New funding solutions were brought to the table. Obviously, major cut to what we had considered ordinary expenditures. In its entirety, it involved the elimination of 31 full-time and 2 part-time positions across our organization. So the resulting zero-based budget through that exercise was just over 22,800,000, and that's what we built up from to create the fiscal 25 budget. But the assumptions that we made still remain untested, so going forward, I'm glad that there's over 220,000 in contingency that the board has to draw from for unforeseen funding needs. One of the things I wanted to make sure we talked about, I think it was mentioned at maybe a recent committee meeting. From our last audit, we had a reserve of $20 million of fund balance. And we sat in this room and heard the presentation about it. And I think even at the time we talked about, well, that solves our problem, right? But one thing I wanted to make sure we revisited is the plans for that money and why that isn't a solution for us going forward. Right? So at the last audit would have been from fiscal 23, right? And this is when we would have audited that. And they told us at the time, you've got a fund balance of $20 million. But right at that time, we had the 24 budget, our current budget that we're in, that we adopted with $5 million use of fund balance, right? For good reasons, for one-time things, but we utilized in the current budget over $5 million to balance it. So right off the top, that use of fund balance has to come out of your $20 million, right? So right out of the bat, we had 15 left, if you will, after last year. As of the last audit, over $500,000 of that 15 million remaining, if you will, is not spendable. It's in our prepaids or it's in inventory. It's advanced to drains, right? We can't spend it. It has another purpose. So those are considered non-spendable. The board had committed over 3.5 million in fund balance to the sheriff's office and correctional facility. So that had to come out of the 15 million. We had to assign the bond payment for the sheriff's office and correctional facility. So that's like a first order of business in your budget. So that goes on your fund balance sheet. You have to assign it for that purpose. Right now, we also assign $2 million for working capital. That's the cash that we need on hand. And as you can imagine, 2 million is tight at times. We also assigned over $1.1 million for vested benefits. That's an amount that we have to book based on the compensated absences that employees have accrued. So that if we were to shut our doors tomorrow, and we would have to pay everyone out. So that's that representative amount. We have to keep that aside in case everyone leaves on the same day. District health capital and central dispatch capital, based on the agreements for those buildings, we have to hold an amount aside that totals over 30,000. Claims liability is almost 300,000, and that is an amount that comes from our property and liability carrier based on the outstanding claims and things unsettled that might be forthcoming. Court technology is something else that we have to assign monies towards because the court is given a certain portion of some fines that go to court technology. So we have to book those separately. So all of those assignments total just over 10 million. So that really leaves us with just over 6 million of unassigned. That's from our last audit. And that's really when I say you have 15 million of fund balance, you could take some one-time things from there. You really only have 6 million of unassigned. And that was from fiscal 23. So before we get too excited, we'd love to see the next audit wrapped up, right? Did that help as far as a fund balance conversation? And thanks to those who listen in these meetings and point out when we say things that need clarity. It helps. County Administration Building Rebuild Project. So I mentioned that the fiscal 25 budget, the recommended budget does have an amount of 250,000 built in there, I think, for the anticipated financing of that admin building rebuild project. That won't be the annual ongoing price tag of financing on that project, but we are not constructed and making interest in principal payments yet, right? We'll have an interest payment only next year. Been a lot of talk about that project at this level. Abatement activities are, as we speak, being finalized, I think, in the mechanical rooms on first floor. And we have received preliminary design layout plans on the building and expect really soon to see revisions of that after an initial meeting. So we are very soon to be wrapping up plans for that. I do want to point out that the commissioners, as we've talked about and as we've done on previous borrows, must adopt and publish a notice of intent resolution that gives voters a 45-day referendum period to petition the project. Know this. Materials recovery facility, one of our bright spots right now. Expecting a major retool of that facility, fueled now by several interlocal agreements with neighboring counties that will transition the MRF into a regional hub, hopefully for recyclables in central Michigan. The sheriff's office and correctional facility project is currently about 85% complete. That USDA loan at 2 1/8% for 40 years. Locked in has really become, I think, one of the most attractive things in our long-term financial forecast. Moving on to wage study implementation. Also a lot of conversation about the wage study recently. Unfortunately, the fiscal 25 recommended budget does not incorporate any funding for reclassifications of any positions, nor does it include dollars for implementation of the wage study. And of how conversations have evolved recently about the study is the next task for admin is to draft an implementation policy and bring that to the board, and we'll probably have a special meeting to vet that policy and discuss it through. That way we will be prepared to act once we are financially able to. I put the deadlines for ARPA funds on here, on the list of outstanding issues. I just can't remind you enough that unspent funds must be formally obligated by the end of this calendar year and must be spent by December 31st of 2026. We sit on about 1.5 million of unspent ARPA dollars, right? You've already said what your intention is for those essentially, but as of now, unspent on mostly the HVAC replacement at the county building. You've obligated over $1 million towards that. 250,000 to the Coldwater Lake Family Park Sewer Project. 100,000, well, I think it's less now, to the treasurer's foreclosure prevention program, less now because they actually, you spent some in last year, I think. So that's why I say it's a little less now. Opioid settlement funds, another outstanding issue. We are now expected to receive just shy of $4 million over the course of the next few decades. This is to be spent on opioid remediation efforts. Board has a great idea to invest those dollars, the Mount Pleasant Area Community Foundation, and that would perpetuate funding for the remediation efforts through annual grant proposals of that interest dollars. Of course, the very big one the upcoming millage effort on the November 5th general election. We knew that our forecast tool revealed that necessary cuts would be detrimental for sure. Most notable obviously is the reduction of the sheriff's office road patrol services. This reduction happened because of the unfortunate nature of road patrol services being the single largest non-mandated function of the general fund. And this board has approved ballot language to request 1.45 mils for 6 years to fund the continuation of road patrol services. That'll be fiscal 25 through fiscal 30, because the recommended budget only includes funding for those services in the first quarter. Okay. Where do we go from here? So do you have anything that you want to add? Oh. I don't think I need to go through page by page the detail of anything. Nothing's changed in your budget resolution. I don't think anything's changed. There with no COLA, even the salaries involved in there wouldn't change. Actually, I take that back. I will talk about this. Commissioner Engler, this is your doing, and you had no knowledge of it. But in the past, I hope we get this right. And if we did it wrong, we've been doing it wrong for 2 years, but we've, I think, made it right in this budget resolution, and it has to do with the redistricting of your district, Commissioner, essentially. It's always been the city commissioners, the commissioners who reside in the city receive a salary of $7,000 a year. The commissioners who are in the out county receive a salary of $7,500 a year. The chairman of the board receives $500 extra. City commissioners, that's fine. We had Commissioner Engler always at 7,500 salary. Didn't change that when it was redistricted, and I don't think we should, because you're still out county. You're not city proper. And I don't, that position would never be city
I didn't
proper.
realize that. I just assumed that our automatically took a cut. And I think the extra money was for the miles you travel. Because, I go from, I covered 5 districts. Well, now both my districts are within 7 miles, so I don't really think I deserve that. But I didn't realize, I thought it was automatically deducted anyways. I really didn't look at that, but I guess you'll have to make an adjustment on that, but
One of two ways. What we chose to do in the budget resolution was say, it used to be commissioners in district 1, 2, and
5.
1, 2, and 3, I think, were out county.
5.
5, 6, and 7 were in town. I think what we've done in here in the budget resolution is say that county commissioner districts 1, 2, 3, and 4 should be at 7,500. 5, 6, and 7 should be at 7,000, still the 500 extra for chair.
I would offer to donate that $500 back, because I don't think I really, because that was for traveling. So I think that, of course, I wasn't around when that policy was in there, but I think it just to try to make up for the extra mileage that I traveled going to, and I'm sure Chris, that's a lot of, I mean, $500 doesn't cover our travel expenses, but now there's no reason for my district to have that extra expense. It should be the same. I said, since they redistricted, it should be the same as the city, because you're just talking Deerfield and parts of Union.
That sound like the pleasure of your board?
I don't know.
I think what would change is if we did that, then we would go back to County Commissioner 1, 2, and 3 being 7,500, 4, 5, 6, and 7 being 7,000. And we would add $500 into your contingency because the budget was built at that salary. If that would be the pleasure of the board in your proposed budget.
I can live with it.
I think all the commissioners are in favor of cutting his pay.
Only one that took a cut, so. As long as.
Excellent, excellent. Okay.
I know. No, but I really do believe that it was put in there for the extra miles and
Yes.
since it's different since they redistrict, so I really don't see the need for that.
I'm glad we talked it through. I assure you, no other changes to the budget resolution. I think that was all we made. And then,
Now, because they're 2-year terms, that you can't change anything till next year on that? Is that?
Or yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I mean,
no,
comes
you,
effect in January. Can you do that right now?
yes, this is for effective January and you cannot
Cannot change anything.
lower, you can increase. Not during your term.
Can't
No,
do
you
anything
can't.
during your term. It has to be, we have to do for the next term, so
So
It
It's
is
locked
set.
in for a while then.
taken care of. Yeah, when the redistricting came, but going forward, we'll have to make that change, so. You really can't change it now. According to the law.
I'll check with, before we check it, and yeah, before we change it in the budget resolution, I'll check with legal because I know there are certain things after the primary election date in an election year, certain things this board,
Cannot do.
certain
We should
periods of time.
Probably make a resolution before the next term starts to.
Yeah, but I think it might, it's even further back than that. I think it's not just before it starts, it's before they're elected, before they're, yeah. Yeah, I think it, so I have to check to see if we can change it, honestly, in the budget resolution, now that you say that.
So by the time we check with legal's gonna take up that extra cost that you're gonna donate back. We won't win.
Yes, yeah. Pretty much,
4 years of $500.
yeah.
I should have caught that, right?
Obviously, the FTE, worksheets changed based on, some of the changes, and like I said, the employee cost shares are in there as well. 5-year capital plan, all of the department fees. We were missing a department last year, so please, everybody make sure and check that your fees are in there. And are up to date. I know some departments have made fee changes recently, so please check those out. This is merely the recommended budget. Right, hopefully later tonight, you'll schedule a public hearing for 2 weeks from tonight. And then you still have 2 weeks after that before final adoption. So it's flexible. We're gonna listen to input that we receive in a couple weeks at the public hearing, and we're gonna build that in. So this is evolving.
I just want to say something. I say, it's very important for our constituents to participate in this instead of being, angry about it when it really goes down. Makes sense to be at the table instead of on the menu.
Oh, yeah, I hope
table.
lots of people are watching. I hope lots of people come and pick up the budget or inspect it, on the website. We had someone come in today and ask for a copy of it, which is fantastic. Mhm.
I want to go back to the healthcare piece and just state that the move to Simply Blue, although it saved us a lot of money, As far as the actual coverage for the employees, very, very little difference
Yeah.
from what they have now.
Minimal effect, adverse effect.
And the other thing, I know there's gonna be some cost increase to the participants in the first two options. Of course, we do have the free option, but even at those cost increases, it is still a fantastic benefit. We may not pay the best. We have a good health insurance coverage on our employees.
Correct.
Do you want to start the,
Sure.
okay,
One other thing I want to bring up, then we'll get
Yep.
here. Prosecuting attorney, the senior assistant prosecuting attorney that's been funded through ARPA funds. It was not added into the zero-based budget that was slated to be cut. I didn't realize at that time I thought it was one of our vacant positions. It is not. There's actually a person in that position. So what I would propose is some kind of gap funding to get us to January first, because January first, there'll be a lot of movement within that office. There will be somewhere for that person to go. It'd be a shame to lay him off October first and then have to start over and try to get somebody January first. They've had enough trouble in that office, trying to retain and trying to recruit people. So I don't want to create that kind of chaos for that department. So to get that position till January first, when all the movement is, there'll be a place for that person to go. Rather than just stop that funding October first.
There'll be two actual bodies leaving the prosecuting attorney's office January 1st, December 31st or January 1st. Creating two vacancies. One is actually three vacancies, I think. Yeah. But you're hiring soon to fill one, so there'll only be two. Okay. That's a little confused. That's not on your spreadsheet, Chairman. Yes,
And the cost of that, continuing that position on until January first would be about 30,000.
that's them. Yep, between 20 to 30,000, we believe. Mhm. And it's just to keep that employee funded until there's a vacancy for him to move into January 1, right? Otherwise, we'll likely lose that person.
See, that makes sense to me. I mean, the position is still gonna be lost, but that person's not gonna be lost because of attrition later on. I know the zero-based budget, all the departments, mandated, non-mandated, have had to make sacrifices, and we've had to cut a lot of positions, and not everybody's happy about it. We know that. But we have to come up with a budget that's sustainable as we move down the road, because we don't have the ability anymore to keep funding it from our reserves. And a lot of people have contributed to that zero-based budget, worked very, very hard to get us to this goal. And I do want to, I'm not going to call out everybody because I don't want to diminish anybody's effort because everybody contributed. But I do want to call out Commissioner Embry for bringing this process forward to us and working through it with us and it's been a eye-opening experience for me because I've learned a whole lot more. And I suspect it's been an eye-opening experience for a lot of the department heads and elected officials. You know, we're not here to pick on any department to choose any favorites. You know, we want everybody to do the best products that they can for the citizens we serve. But we have to do it in a fiscally sustainable manner. And I think this budget is one that leads to that. I do have one question. I know we were looking at two things, that is a prosecuting attorney's position and also hats. Does the budget include any money for hats at this point? knowing that.
100,000.
It does. It includes $100,000 towards our contract with hats versus the 175 that we're currently under contract with them for.
And I know I've been one person that's been opposed to continue funding for hats because it's a no-kill. And I know you can't bring wild animals there. They won't take them. And that bothers me. But I understand it's their philosophy, but I didn't quite understand that we still have to have a shelter to take animal control, which is under the sheriff's department, animal control dogs to hold them until some kind of disposition is made of them, but I don't think we can do that for $100,000 a year, so I can understand that. If it helps that organization, that's fine, but have you had conversations with that to know that they're willing to accept that amount?
No, only to say, this is the direction I believe it's going. I believe they've, taken that back and shared with the board, but that'll be an ongoing negotiation. Contractually, we are able to do this because of our funding issues.
Mr. Sweeney, you had your hand.
Yeah,
up.
something that, we've been discussing so many things on this budget. There's one thing that, I've overlooked until now is the cost of living. I think it's a responsibility of this board every year to provide cost of living. It's not a raise. It's an adjustment with the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, that every year. It should be something that we look at every year and adjust for. It should be in our budget. It doesn't matter what our budget is or how much we perceive we have. It's got to be built into our zero base. It is that, randomly what you want to call our budgeting. So right now, consumer price index predicted by the US Bureau of Labor is for 2024 is 3.2%. Okay. So all of our employees that are going to be remaining with us October 1st have reduced support around them in their departments because of cuts. They've got increases coming, on healthcare. These are little things where they're in a swimming pool trying to keep their head above water. And in the past, the county has like, well, we don't have the money this year for COLA, or we're going to do a 0.5% COLA or whatever. But what we're doing is we're not supporting them and keeping them up above water and floating with, whether it's singles or families, we need to support our employees and we need to pay them their wages every year equivalents. And that's what cost of living adjustment is. So, I'm, being a little bit, we'll call it aggressive forward with the statement, but I wanted to emphasize that we need to have a strong discussion on this COLA. And when we leave the discussion today, that we're telling our administrator, we want you to go back and build this in for this budget. And I apologize that it's come this late, but we do have a month or so to, right?
This is.
The end of the
by
tunnel's
moving through
coming,
the
right?
process, right?
Yeah.
To allow for this, yeah.
Right. So, I think, as an opener, I think we should, since the predicted index is 3.2%, I think we need to go back and look at, providing a 3% COLA for our employees. Now it's up to you to respond to me.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that really, if we don't do something like this, they will be getting less money. I mean, their money will go less, won't go as far because of inflation. So, and they have been with us, you know, and this seems like a sad thing to do, to not do some kind of adjustment like that. And also, we have been dealing with the problem of retaining and recruiting people. And I know lots of organizations have, but so that's another factor that I think is important. I do think we should consider this.
I am in support of COLA too. I don't know how we're gonna fund it. But in the back of my mind is, we don't have the dollars for the wage study, and if we're not giving COLA, it's just the employees are falling further behind. And it's gonna be hard to retain. We know in some places we already have a revolving door. We just can't keep people. Cause everybody pays better than we do and they go. And that's not gonna be in the best interest of the services that we provide over time. I don't know how best to proceed with this. I don't know if we can make a decision tonight, not knowing what this is gonna cost, but maybe sending this back to finance and for review. Might be a way to proceed.
You can, although the proposed budget that'll be out there for review for the public hearing. We can either incorporate this or not, right? But we would need to know from this meeting if you want changes incorporated into that proposed budget that's out there for public review. If you don't, that's fine. We can talk about this again in 2 weeks and incorporate changes more then. So the discussion could happen at finance.
Yep, the only other concern is we've been telling everyone we're doing a zero-based budget for the first time. We're not gonna rely upon use of fund balance. And it looks like we're going back on that because I don't think the 200 and some thousand that we have is gonna be enough to cover.
Well,
At 3%.
you also have, again, not prudent because it's not a long-term solution, but you still have ARPA dollars too. Anything you tell me tonight you want to build into that budget, I'm gonna ask you, do you want to use ARPA or you want to use contingency, right? Or because fund balance, that's a tougher conversation right now, but you still have ARPA. You still
The
have,
ARPA dollars we have dedicated. Up though, so if we use it for something else, then we'll have to kind of
that's correct.
refigure how we have those dollars dedicated.
I don't know if you or Melissa could tell us what a 3% would be.
I think, yeah, I think Melissa's got us an answer.
$80,000 for general fund only. For the entire county general fund, other fund, about 425.
And what percent increase?
$194 for 3%.
And I think from my math, a 2% increase covers the increase for our employees, for most of our employees that even if they were on a family plan A, saw that $825 increase a year, roughly 2% increase for most of our employees would cover that. That's
Right. Well, yeah, so I say 3% because I know the situation we're in, right? But I mean, truthfully, we're looking at increase medical and inflation on that they're seeing. So, 3%, putting a hand out and saying we're trying to come as far as we can, to help.
One bright spot is we should be getting some revenues from the new solar development going on in Isabella Township. That might be
more than what's built into your zero base, yes.
increase over time, but it gives us some breathing room.
Yes, sir.
Separate topic, real quick. On the 2025 budget is on the MERS retirement, is that is that their report for 25 is already built into that, or do we get that in October, or December?
The annual MERS valuation every year in June. And
Okay.
it's always for the prior calendar year. So we, in June, just a few months ago, received the valuation through December 31, 2023. That has the amounts that we're gonna build into the 25 and the 26 budget, I believe. So go back another year, we've had the amounts for the 25 budget for 2 years. MERS does that to help you budget and they lock those in. That's part of why they do that 10-year smoothing to, because that way changes aren't so abrupt each year. But we've known what
Okay,
those will be.
I was just curious because of that one bad report really put us behind the 8 ball on that, so I'm just thinking that their revised would probably, I would hope that their investments would have been a little bit more in line with the market has done, so,
Much more positive valuation this June than.
okay.
the
I
June
just
before.
wondered if this was built in yet, or we're still waiting for that, so, okay.
The known thing. That helps.
Any other thoughts on the COLA? Because we kind of have to come to some agreement on that.
Maybe just take a straw vote on. I know it's not a vote. You give a percentage on paper here.
Thank you. Maybe you just need to hear from your commissioners. Maybe they just need to say their opinion.
Okay,
It's probably the safest way.
start on this end. Start with you.
Jim's got his hand up over there. No,
And you can start with me and then go down from there. Since I started, well, I mean, since I
say
started
that.
the conversation is what I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
So, my preference would be to do a 3% COLA and put it in the proposed budget as is now and have finance look at it. And, and so that we can adjust the proposed budget in the future. I'm just saying, I would say that we would put it forward to the people to discuss it. So have it on paper, public. So that they can, when we have the public hearing, they can comment on it.
Rather than building it in after the review and the comments been made, that's a really intransparent comment. Thank you.
well, Commissioner's trying to save me, but yeah, I actually, yeah, that doesn't happen very often, no. I kind of agree with Commissioner Swaney, write it down a little bit as far as we'll put a number in there. It's easier to, once we know the amount, to adjust that where we need to instead of, saying not, but have it out there in the public. Like I said, we really need to see what the number is, but definitely I'd rather have it in there that we're gonna try to put something in there. We're just not sure, so. But a range, yeah. And it's,
All right. I know we have been focused on balancing the budget. And in order for us to maintain financial viability as we go through this next 4 or 5 years of being $4 to $6 million in the hole, to the negative, while on the one hand, we do definitely want to take care of our employees. But with that decision to add 3% as a cost of living will turn into an extensive legacy cost as you move forward and make it even more and more difficult for us to get out of the hole that we've got ourselves into. So again, I'm in favor of a cost of living, never been against it, but is the money there? And currently the money is not. So I know we've talked about at finance, trying to make a resolution that would commit any additional legacy revenue not only the wage study, but a cost of living allowance. But the money's got to be there first. If you do your budget at home, you're not going to spend money you don't have. Unless you're going to put it on a credit card, and again, you're paying interest, and it's going to create a longer term financial challenge to get back to square one. That's my only comment.
I would favor the 3%, but I would ask that maybe you get with Preston Community Services to see if you can do a projection on our solar farm additional revenues that we might be able to build into the budget to offset that. Or using the ARPA monies that we have to offset it, because we still have some challenges ahead. And I know we are increasing our legacy costs, but when you have a talented employee pool that has helped us so much to get us to the point we are now, I think we need to do something to retain them over time.
Commissioner Marino.
I go with the 3% as well. And I like your idea of the ARPA funds or the other part contingency, maybe some from each, you know. And I also think that at this point, it would be good to allow the people to see what we're contemplating so we can get some feedback from them.
Hutchinson, do you have any comments?
I do. I think this is so late process. I can't be for the 3%. I need to know the numbers of what we're voting on before I would agree to anything like that. We've got a millage that's going out there that we would like to save our patrol people. What does this all say to everything that's coming down the pike in the next 3 months? You know, the minute we get our millage passed through, then we add something on. I think it's just a horrible look. And I'm not saying that it's a wrong thing to do. And I think in the future, that's something that you look at, and you do look at it every year, but I think this is a bad message. My opinion.
I guess-
One more thing.
Sure.
I mean, we went out and we got a wage study back in April. And we still are closer to implementing that and in talking about that, how that's gonna go. I mean, you just got certain things that are coming that, you know, I don't know. I just don't think that looks good.
My opinion, I think that we're not close to implementing that wage study, unfortunately, that we don't know where the dollars are for that. With the increased cost shares for healthcare, I don't want to see people have to go backwards. I'm a little uncomfortable with the idea that we have to give a COLA raise every year and it has to be based on the CPI rate. We have to find the money for it. It has to be, we have to have the revenue to do it. But like I said earlier, I don't want to see people go backwards. I want to give some COLA. We do have some contingency built into this budget. We've got some ARPA funds that we could reallocate. And we also are looking at some solar revenue coming down the pipe here soon, within the next fiscal year. So I think we could offer a 3% COLA. I would be in favor of it.
I think that's loud and clear.
Okay.
Loud and clear.
The other thing I think we have to build in and is funding for that senior assistant prosecuting attorney position until January 1st. Any comments on that? I see heads nodding. Yes. Okay,
Same kind of directive. It is either ARPA funded or contingency or
So
something. Okay, we'll build it. We'll build that in.
yes, sir.
Just going back to that, 3%, are we gonna get a solid number on that? So,
Fit finance? How do Finance do they?
is that,
Yeah, I mean.
see what that number is, it's really, I mean, percentages are. But that's where we can dig, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be, yeah,
Um,
that would help.
Yep.
I mean, we're dealing with percentages, but to actually see the actual number would really help finalize anything we're gonna do.
Okay. Is that clear enough direction for you?
Very clear.
Okay.
Any other questions about the budget?
On the recommended budget. All right, I don't see any more questions.
Do want to say thank you to the board, especially you and finance for your extra commitment to all the extra budget meetings. Obviously, all the departments that endured those meetings as well. And of course, Miss Melissa.
Hold on, Miss Melissa.
Can't lose her, so you guys better keep her happy.
That's true.
Thank you, Melissa.
It was a good process and myself and the two finance commissioners were involved in a lot more so than previously. And it was good, yeah. It was a good process.
Hate to interrupt. Can you move that microphone up? Because they can't hear you.
Oh, yep.
Sorry about that.
Sorry. No, I just was talking about the budget process and how myself and you two gentlemen were very much involved in the budget right from the get-go, from early on, more so than we ever have been in the past. And it's been a good process. With that, is there any more discussion on that? If not, we'll move along. We have no appointments to boards and commissions, brings us down to committee reports, Finance and Administration Committee.
Chairman, our first item is consider ratifying and placing on file the August 2nd, 2024 invoice list in the amount of $473,884.09. The August 9th, 2024 invoice list, the amount of $2,134,819.59. The adjustment list dated August 15, 2024. So looking at the August 2nd invoice list, as I go down all the major bills, which are $5,000 or greater, they're all very familiar to me. I mean, there's contracts that we have with HATS. We have our payments for our monthly international and 90-day prescriptions, Preston Community Services, and so on and so forth. I see that we have some drain maintenance work dollars going out. We have the fourth quarter appropriation to Middle Michigan Development Corporation, also community mental health. We have a annual CAD contract with Core Technology. Other than that, I don't see anything here that I have any questions on, and as I look through the background list of lesser than 5,000, I didn't have any questions as I reviewed this. And again, this is not the only review. It goes through multiple layers of review. This is probably the last time we get a considerable discussion if anybody has questions. Other questions on the August 2nd list? Hearing none, we'll move over then to the August 9th list. Again, it's our standard things that for contracts that we have. We do have our Clark Construction charges for the correctional facility for July of $1,878,238.15. As it was stated earlier, we 85% construction complete, so We're getting down to the end cost for that budget, but we still make those payments as we go along. I don't see any of the others that I have any questions on or any of the background bills. Anybody else have questions for the August 9th list? None, we'll move on to the adjustment list dated August 15th. And again, these are adjustments to these two invoice lists, changes in the dollar amounts. And they're usually changes because we're paying it early to get a discount, or paying it early to avoid a penalty fee, or because somebody puts in a sales tax, which we're exempt from, that they get adjusted. And so every one of those falls within that category. I don't see anything that is outside of those adjustments. Any questions, comments? And we'll move this then to tonight's meeting.
Second item for consideration is to consider approving prime contract change order number 24 with Clark Construction in the net additional amount of $19,728, and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same. I see that we have senior project manager Heidi Haynes Kindle with us. Heidi, I'm going to go ahead and turn this right over to you to explain. Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, we have prime contract, change order number 24. The net total of $19,728. Going through the list here, PCO number 138. There was, we needed to add some condensate drains for the mini splits for the IT rooms. There was no condensate drains shown on the drawings, and also pumps that we needed to pump those condensate drains to a drain. Adding those pumps and condensate drains was $10,915. And that was taken out of buyout. Next on our list is PCO number 150. That was for local fire marshal wanted a dry sprinkler head in the safe room at B165. That's out by the Sally Port. So that was a requirement by the inspector, which was an add of $1,566. And that item was also taken out from buyout. Next item on the list is PCO number 162. That was for the front entry canopy. Shown on the drawings was a surface mount. And so we needed to recess there, a light fixture there, because the metal panels were built for a recessed type fixture. So that change there was an add of $5,285. And that also was taken from buyout. Next item on our list is PCO number 164. We had a similar issue at the entry out on the south side of the building, at the weather vestibule there. We needed to provide a surface mount light fixture there. It was shown to be recessed. Again, the metal panels were built and designed to fit the recessed fixture. So we had to purchase that one, which was $3,422, and that also came from buyout. And the last item here is item number 168. We removed the payment and performance bond from our cleaning company. Their contract is under $50,000. They were having trouble getting bonded, so we decided to remove that bond from them, which was a savings to the project of $1,460, and that was applied back to buyout. So at this point, we are still taking everything from buyout. Contingency has not been touched. We are at 85% complete with construction, and with our total buyout and contingency at this time is 37%. And this item here was a total of $19,728. Is there any questions?
Vice Chairman.
Just a comment. So we had the election coming up, and I watch Facebook. I probably shouldn't do that because it bothers me, but I see that the county board gets hammered because we have change orders. And yeah, this is change order number 24. And in a project as technical and as large as that correctional facility is, you got to expect you have change orders. Some of them are in the favor of the county financially. Others are take away from the buyout that we've been able to get. But here we're getting hit because we've got 24 change orders But here we are, 85% of the project completed, and we still have $31,000 in savings from what was originally budgeted. I just wanted to make that a comment. We have commissioners that sit on top of this project, go to weekly meetings. We have a very good Clark Construction Company that works to maintain the project and budget. And I just get disheartened when I see people hammering us for an unfair reason.
Madam?
Please include our volunteer owners rep, Mr. Mike Ferber, in that as well. It's
Very
been
good.
super helpful.
And our facilities director and the sheriff, I mean, they're all working at the earnest and hard to keep this project going, getting it done under budget. So thumbs up for all those people.
And especially, again, a special thanks to Heidi. Heidi is working very hard on our behalf. She really does. And when you're over 85% complete with $781,774 left in contingency, which has been untouched at this point, speaks volumes to what you've been able to do to help us through this project. So again, thank you, Heidi.
You're welcome.
Gentlemen, any other questions for Heidi or comments? Hearing none, we will move this to our regular board session in just a little bit.
So our third item is consider approving the intergovernmental agreement template between Isabella County on behalf of the Isabella County Register of Deeds and Isabella County local units of government to implement a digital delivery of deeds system and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same. So do we have Pete Preston with us, or?
We do. I see him on the Zoom.
I just wanted get some like little preamble to this. We did privatize our equalization. And so we're doing what the county's mandated to do, and things that the county used to do, but really it's a township responsibility. It's been passed back, and it's been done on a very short-term basis. And so we're working through the glitches with that to make sure that we all get on the same page and make this change as efficient and accurate as possible for everybody involved in the process. And one of the things that was kind of identified is the fact that when you go out to mail your deeds, you don't always have up-to-date, accurate information. And townships are doing it in different manners, but we're trying to get everybody on the same page. And so this is one way that we're working. Preston Community Services, Register of Deeds Office, and we'll make these available to all the local taxing units so that we can improve that database to eliminate some of the glitches that we even had still in the last tax billing. If Mr. Preston's on.
I am here. I cannot get my camera to work. Hopefully you can hear my voice.
We can hear you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Yes, preamble to this intergovernmental agreement is for us to move forward with more of a digitized system to work with the assessors and the equalization department and register of deeds. We think we're going to be able to add some things to the process. We are starting with baby steps in essence for equalization to first get the digitized deeds, and then we go ahead and we distribute those to the assessors. The next step will be for those assessors to have access to the same system that we have once we give we get the reporting back and forth between the two of us, so we can always make sure that we're on the same page. So this is our first step to get there. And since Register of Deeds, their deeds are protected, they have their revenue stream there, they're responsible for those deeds. We want to make sure that those aren't disseminated to the general public without going through Register of Deeds, or at least connecting to Register of Deeds, who has the primary responsibility there. So in essence, it's going to cut a lot of paper.
Yes. Madam Administrator, you have anything to add?
I do not. I think this is fantastic. I applaud Register of Deeds Jackson for being on board with this as well. And I think it's a good move forward in a way to help smooth the transition to our contracted services fully.
One thing we did discuss in finance is that there were some glitches with the last mailing. So we're still working to get all that worked out. And just want to kind of identify to the board that we have an election coming up, and I think a lot of townships are going to probably be looking at new officers and inexperienced people coming in. We had a training session, I think that helped, but I think moving forward, even if it costs the county some additional monies because we don't have a contract for Preston Community Services, we needed somebody to coordinate some additional training, maybe 1 or 2 sessions to try to help out some of the struggles that the townships and municipalities are still having, so that once we can get all on the same page, it gets a lot less problematic in the future. So I'm kind of maybe asking our administrator to work with Preston Community Services and make sure we can work this out before the next tax billing.
Absolutely. And I think working with MTA too, I think as an organization, MTA does a lot for their townships in this regard. So maybe something that already exists that we can just bring, literally right here and host right here for them.
I did bring up this with Mr. Preston, Pete Preston, and he's all in favor of it. And maybe even before we have the training, just have one session where we can sit down at a table with maybe a couple of the people from local government that may have some of the issues, and let them put them on the table and see how we work through them.
Absolutely.
And we will be rolling out here shortly some more 4029, which is the levying of the millages that a lot of the townships will be doing for the winter. We'll be rolling out some training pamphlets and sessions that we've had to go through in the past. We do have copies of those. And then Sarah in my office has developed a little line by line how to complete this once a township treasurer is receiving. So we're still in that mix of making sure that we get to that point that the townships can almost call up their vendor, BSNA, and say, okay, I have all the ammunition here, help me load the gun. So we're still in that, and yes, some training could possibly help this along, but we are doing everything we can to make sure that they have everything.
Yeah. Okay, totally agree with you, Jerry. I had 2 calls today from townships, and they still need some help. So wholeheartedly want to give them all the support we can.
And it's not that there's problems out there. It's just the communication and training, and so we all can work together. It's not, we're trying to make it difficult. Some of our changes were done in a very short period of time, and it's challenging. Commissioner Embry. Register deeds, Karen Jackson, do you have anything to add? Silly question, right? Well, apparently not. Well, if there's no other discussion, we'll move this into tonight's meeting. Thank you to all.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. And that brings us to Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, we have one item, that is considering approving the net source 1 quote in the amount of $159,367.50 for technology needs for the Isabella County Sheriff's Office and Correctional Facility, and authorize the board person to sign the same. We have the sheriff, and I believe this is to fund hardware and also to integrate the systems. It's been budgeted. And I think it's the next process to hook everything together. So, Sheriff.
Is that working? Okay, good. It's good. So yes, so this is part of the project. It's been part of the project since day one. It's built into the budget. It's no additional funds from general fund or any place else. It's all part of that portion of funding stream that come from the county side versus the USDA. You'll have 3 or 4 of these coming in front of you. Unfortunately, they are big numbers, but we did budget wisely. Currently, our numbers look like we're going to be $50,000 to the good when we're done. So that's a positive. This one's kind of critical. We're at that 15% left to go stage. So if you've been out to the site, it is a spaghetti mess of wires, nothing to connect to. So Michelle and Chris have worked through this process with NetSource One. NetSource One is a vendor of ours. It works with Central Dispatch. The court are vetted for our security, our criminal justice information. They are very in tune with our system and how it operates and how it connects to all the other police agencies and the patrol cars and the dispatch centers and so forth. So they're kind of a sole source for us because they really know our system. They have our platform, our information. They monitor it on the backside all the time for us. So they really were the ones to go to. Michelle and Chris went through that with them several times. We were able to kind of whittle it down a little bit to exactly what we needed. But it is timely. They are looking for racks and switches and things to get there as quickly as possible. And of course, you know, as everything, our lead times are a little stretched there a little bit. So we do want to move this one forward. And then, like I said, there'll be a couple more coming in front of you, furniture, our monitors and television stuff. And we did these things outside of to save some money, sales tax. That was one of the Commissioner Embry's things he really wanted to look at, and a few of the other commissioners, and we were able to do that by purchasing that outside of the construction piece of that. So I'm not sure if there's anything else I can really go into it. It really is just all the widgets and gadgets to start making everything talk together.
And they'll be in charge of testing the system also, so.
It's not going to be me. I'm not going to be licking my fingers touching wires. So no, so they'll be there for us. They'll make sure that somehow the 3,000 wires connect to the right spot, and then the little blinky lights go to the other spot, and then things work. So.
Okay, any questions for the sheriff at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll move this forward to the work session. Thank you, Sheriff. And Mr. Chairman, that completes work of the Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Commissioners. And that brings us to Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our first item is consider approving the 2024-2025 media campaign contract between Isabella County King Media in the amount of $49,990 and authorize the board chair to sign the same. Yeah. Ian here, veterans person, to break it down for us. Hi, Ian.
Thank you very much. So I came to you earlier in the year with the County Veterans Service Fund grant from the state of Michigan, which they approved for a total of $78,578. $50,000 of that, or actually $49,990, is with King Media to do a media campaign. We've been using them for years. They actually did our original campaign creation, so to speak. They created a brand for the office to get that out of there, and very reliable. So they're doing, let me pull their contract up because I don't know it by heart. They're doing broadcast radio, streaming audio, connected television, and gas station TV ads. And these have been pretty successful of getting veterans, letting them know we're out there, along with obviously what I do, but it's kind of a spaghetti mess to put it out there to everybody, to let them know in any way, shape, or form. Hopefully it gets somebody, their family members, spouses, whomever, to let them know I'm here and available to provide those services for veterans. So anybody have any questions?
Seeing and hearing none, that will appear on our next meeting in a little while.
Okay, second item, consider approving the contract between Wade Promotions and Isabel County in the amount of $19,800 and authorize the board chair to sign the same. Again?
So this is a contract with basically Wade Promotions is ICTC's advertising company that you see those bus ads on the side of the ad are roll around the county. Again, we've been using them for years, and along with King Media and all the other stuff we do, it's kind of got to try to spread our messages as far as possible. I actually have been pretty successful seeing or having people mention, hey, I've seen our committee members on the side of buses rolling through gas stations. You know, our committee members will say, hey, somebody saw me the other day over here, or over there, and I'm always confused, like, well, yeah, I saw your face on the side of the bus. So it seems to be doing its job. So we continue to use them, and it's a pretty reliable source, again, to get veterans into our office.
Yep, gets the word out.
Absolutely.
Go board. We have any other questions? Okay, we'll move that forward to the next meeting. Thanks again.
Okay, our next item is consider approving the individual service contract for bulk meal delivery dated August 12th, 2024 between the County of Isabella on behalf of the Commission on Aging and Daryl Lewis Cummings, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. We have Jennifer here from Commission on Aging.
Hi there. So our bulk meal delivery drivers, we contract with them. We typically have 3. 2 are regulars, and then we have a sub. And their role is to come here to Commission on Aging Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and they pick up the bulk meals and deliver them out to our congregate meal sites, because we have those 3 days a week. If we happen to have all of our home delivered meal drivers are volunteers. So if we happen to have a driver that's out in those areas, they can also take those meals too, to make a shorter drive. But we did have one of our drivers had to leave us due to health issues. And within that week, we already have a replacement who would like to join our team. So this is the contract for Daryl Lewis Cummings. And we did, since it's so close to the end of the fiscal year, I did have Carmel, our Food of the Friends manager, just do the contract through next year as well. So get him on board with us.
Any questions or comments on the item?
I just want to say thanks to all the drivers. I mean, this is.
They do a huge job, and
Is-
a lot more meals are going out than in past years, so they are busy.
I just wanted to say I went to grade school with Larry Davis.
Oh, nice.
So I know who he is. He's a good
Great
guy.
guy. Yeah, he's helped us a lot for a long time. Mhm.
Okay, this item will also be added to our next meeting in a few minutes, probably. And that concludes the work of the Human Resources and Public Works Committee. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, commissioners. And so we have no intergovernmental affairs, no administrator controller issues, no unfinished business. Under new business, a few items, the first of which is consider accepting and placing on file the 2023 annual report from the county medical examiner. The report's contained in our packets, has statistics on deaths in the county from the year 2023. We've subcontracted that to Sparrow for as long as I've been on this board. Sparrow was recently bought by U of M Health, so it's now falls under U of M Health System. So any questions or comments on the annual report of medical examiner? If not, we'll move on. Item B is public hearing on the fiscal year 2025 proposed budgets. Consider scheduling the public hearing on the fiscal year 2025 proposed budget beginning at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as it may be heard on Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024 as a hybrid meeting in person and electronic at the Isabella County Commission on Aging located at 2200 South Lincoln Road, Mount Pleasant, Michigan, 48858. So at the next board meeting, if we pass that motion tonight, we'll have a public hearing on the fiscal year 2025 proposed budget. And then moving on, item C is Isabella County Board of Commissioners special meeting. Consider scheduling an Isabella County Board of Commissioners special meeting for the purpose of considering a revised L 4029 for the winter tax levy on Wednesday, November 6th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. as a hybrid meeting in person and electronic at the Isabella County Commission on Aging located at 2200 South Lincoln Road, Mount Pleasant, Michigan, 48858. And I know we talked about this, jog my memory. Why are we having a special meeting on the L 4029?
Sure, absolutely. And as Mr. Preston, our equalization manager, referenced at the, I think at the next meeting, he'll be bringing the winter L 4029 forward, and that will have the Commission on Aging levy, that levies all the special millages, right? Commission on Aging, Parks, ICTC, and Medical Care, the four that you heard from tonight. So based on your motions this evening and what gets approved, Mr. Preston will turn that into the L 4029 for the winter levy. And hopefully next round you'll approve that. That goes out to the local treasurers so they know what to put on the tax bill. But on November 5th, we've got another special millage on the ballot. And if that is successful, that needs to go on this winter's tax bills. So the locals, and now we're in this transition, right, where the local treasurers, local assessors are doing more in this process. They're taking on that from where equalization had in the past, some of those duties. So we want to, as soon as we can, after the November election, schedule this meeting. Mr. Preston's gonna have a revised L 4029 for us ready. If the ballot initiative is not successful, then we would simply cancel this meeting. Okay. We chose November 6th at 5:30. Please talk about that, change it if you need to. I know it's a little far out, but it's not your regularly scheduled day, right? This would be a Wednesday. But the hope is if we're successful with the millage, that needs to go on the winter levy, and those locals need as much time as they can to incorporate into the winter tax bills. So we're just kind of getting out in front of that now.
That date works for me. Does that work for everyone else? Okay, all right. See 6 heads nodding yes, so yes. Very good. Next up is general public comment. Is there anyone for general public comment? Yes, sir. Please step up to the podium and write your name and address. Generally limit folks to 3 minutes. We generally limit folks to 3 minutes.
8 minutes.
Yes, sir. But I'll give you time to write your name.
No.
We'll start after you, we'll start after you write your name and address down.
Do that.
Okay.
Where to stand? I've been sitting long enough. I've got a bad back. That's why.
I understand.
I'm sure you'll be able to hear me. Apparently didn't hear me last year. It's been going on for a year. All over County Road. North of Baseline Road. Called Wise Road. And are you Mr. Mann? Anyway. Out where I live, Baseline and Chippewa Road, on 40 acres. 20 years ago, my neighbor, he's my cousin, barricaded the road off. Cut trees down, going back in, the road right away, is 66 foot wide. It's owned by the county. I went over there, took my tractor, pushed the trees out of the road. Come back to the house, my other cousin takes his dogs for a ride in his truck. Drives back there, has been, we're all born and raised there. He comes out, my other cousin that owned the 60 acres, partial of the 60 acres that barricaded the road off initially. Met him, stopped him in the trail, dragged him out of his truck, and literally 5 guys took the whooping on him. Put him in the hospital. I heard it, I live on the back corner of my 40 acres, a quarter mile off each road, Chippewa Road, Baseline Road. Half my property's woods, the front half is field. I hear the commotion and whatnot. I drive down there across my field
And I'm watching my own cousins put the boots to my other cousin and 2 or 3 other neighbor guys, same thing, put him in the hospital, all over a county road. Then, a year ago, a guy buys a piece of property on Wise Road. Mind me, we own 309 acres, our family. My granddad owned. It's all been broke up, divided up, you know how it goes. We're all cousins, we're all family. But year ago or 2 years ago, 240 acres was sold. It's the old sheep ranch, north of Baseline in Wise. Bill Switzer, don't know him, Alma Logistics. Gene Hilliard, knew his dad, grew up with him in high school. They buy it, they clear cut it. Apparently to farm, they take and push all them great big mammoth stumps over onto that county road right away. And for a mile deep on the state land. Onto state land in a 66-foot county road right away. My sister is the Denver Township clerk. I spent a lot of hours going back through records from the 1800s, the logging days, when them roads were bought and paid for $6. They're all on record. There's about 6 roads all the way around that state land that go a half-mile deep. Anyway, I was here last year and I dealt with Pat Gaffney with the county road and Brock, and they were to get with a lawyer, draft a letter, legal letter, and so those property owners, and another guy buys 3 acres and sets a house back there and says he owns the road. I went back there before he even set the house. I go, dude, I have the records from Denver Township. You don't own the road. The county plows it for 600 feet, but it's a 1320 half mile or 2,800 whatever feet deep. It's a half a mile right away. I tried to explain to him. But no, I own the road from Baseline in. Yet there's another house or 2 in there on that road. Anyway, this is getting short. I'm to shorten it up. I can get my 3 minutes in. So I go down there about 3 weeks ago on my side-by-side. I drive back in there and the guy's got all grass. Well, for that, did get the stumps taken out of the road going back on the 2-track trail that goes back in there. I did finally get I got the DNR guy up to Gladwin County. His name is Blair, the field officer, Gladwin County, and DNR. I don't know if this sheriff was involved. I know. I hope so. I've called him twice in the last week, and if you turn my call away, then I'll do that another time. Anyway, I go down there. I got back there. I see he's got fresh grass planted. The guy's got a camera in the yard, light comes on. This was in the middle of the day. I pulled back off, didn't tear up no grass, just pulled up there from here to the wall, backed out, turned around and left. As I'm leaving, I see the other guy that owns 60 acres out front. Rides around on his John Deere Gator with his dog, which is cool. On property, he's cool. He's fine. He's a fine guy. I talk to him. I stop there every deer season, see how they do. You know, I'm neighborly with all my neighbors. How'd you do? What kind of buck you got? Blah, blah, blah. We're all friends. You know? Are you getting close to wrapping this up? I've let you go. 1 more minute. Okay. 1 more minute. All right. I'll shorten it up. Big time. Okay. So that I was seeing back there. I'm accused of harassing over the road. I go up north camping on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Have to be back for my granddaughter's 6th birthday. I'm on my motorcycle. I pull in my driveway, go back out front to turn my fish pond on, and the cabin windows are smashed out of my cabin. And a note left in there. a threatening note in black felt marker. I don't have it, they do. It said, you bothered, cause any more harassments over that road, we'll be back. Just forgot to sign their name, they pretty much signed their name. I can put two and two together as to who. Police were called. Nothing done. I don't have no proof, don't have no cameras. They steal your cameras. You can set their cams out there, they just steal them. Have motion sensor lights that come on, doesn't matter. The cabin sets off the road in the middle of my 40 acres, and there's a trout pond there. My daughter's house is out front, helped build that 2 years ago. Same guy, getting these threats from. I'm out there feeding my fish. I walk around the north side of it. Pow! Pow! 2 shots fired in my direction. I ain't waiting for the third one. Called them, I'm out. Mr. Steiner, on his days off on Tuesday, wasn't very happy with me because I'm having to report somebody shooting at me. Oh, anybody can shoot. That's not against the law to shoot a gun off anytime, day or night. Yep. Did you okay. get a picture of them? Oh, did bullets go whistling by your head? No, sir.
I'm gonna have to ask you to wrap this up.
I didn't think anything would be coming of it anyway. So I filed a PPO against him. And I get another call. I've had 5 shots in the middle of the night at 2 in the morning around my house. They gotta walk a quarter of a mile in my property to fire gunshots one at a time for 15 minutes. Bull crap. How would you feel? You want your grandkids prepping? I'm not afraid to die, sir. I've lived 67 years, been shot at before.
Thank you. Anyone else for general public comment? Public, all right.
Good evening, Commissioners. I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank you guys, particularly Chairman Hope, for bringing up the issue. The primary reason I wanted to talk to you tonight was in reference to the senior assistant prosecuting position that was being cut. I know this is public opinion, so I'm just or public comment, so I'm just going to kind of ramble on. I will try to be more brief than prior presenter. Having said that, I believe that the board has always acted in the best interest of the county residents. I know that there's always contrarian views. I know there's people that don't always agree with everything that the board has done, and it's okay to have made mistakes as the board. I mean, it happens. I've made them too. Having said that, I was certainly frustrated by the lack of progress and movement on this request. I understand that the county's faced with financial hardships, but we fought very hard to get that position. And I've indicated before that it was ARPA funded in many ways, unbeknownst to me at the time. Mr. Webb, who I brought tonight, in a lot of ways to put a face to the line item of the position that was being eliminated in the fiscal year 25 budget. He came into the position, it was advertised, it was not put in as a grant funded position. It was not indicated that there was going to be a sunset on it when the funds ran out. And he actually was not the first person to take that job. Mr. Toaz, who's now the elected prosecutor in Gladwin County, was the original person that took that position. And it was unbeknownst to me at that time that it was grant funded as well. Having said that, the discussion over the course of the 6 months has been that traditionally when grants run out, that the position expires. So I am at a loss for why, when the grant hasn't run out and it is able to be spent through the end of 2026, that position's on the block to not be renewed. I'm certainly in favor of the comments that have been made and the attempts to make right not losing that individual. But as I've indicated in prior communications to the Finance Committee and to the chair of the board, in fairness, that position is going to be necessary going forward. I struggle to understand the logic of having a public defender's office with more attorneys and professionals than the prosecuting attorney's office. Right now, that position is our seventh position, seventh attorney. They have 7 attorneys. Cutting that would then reduce us to 6, even if we're tiding it over through the end of the year. It's ironic that when the public defender's office was created, they were seeking parity with the prosecuting attorney's office. And now I'm seeking parity with them. Those are the concerns that I have. I struggle to understand why we would have the operating millage pass, have a law enforcement millage on the ballot in November, and I'm assuming it's going to pass. And I say that because I can't imagine living in a community that doesn't support law enforcement and road patrol. And I think it's important that the board understands that the majority of the constituents did support the millage efforts and support the board in their spending and their use of that money to operate the county. And so I I really implore the county board to continue to use those funds and properly to fund positions, to fund people, and to not let the loud minority voices affect your ability to effectively run the county. I've seen other other department heads and other elected officials come before the board with requests that are reasonable. I understand the hesitation in spending money right now. I understand the optics and the perception. But you can't let politics get in the way of doing what's right. And I know that that's something that you all know, and I'm asking you to continue to do the job the right way, the way you have been doing it. But also responsible and to consider the things that you have considered over the last few months and the things that you're talking about. I think that it's important to understand that that position allows us to be effective in our jobs. That position allows parity with the public defender's office. I know that they're going to be evaluating their caseload, and it may be that next year they're seeking more bodies. I'm not in a position to say that we need more than what we've got. I think that 7 is an appropriate number of professionals. I know that other counties or other departments are being asked to make cuts, but I think it's important to acknowledge that the cut that we're being asked to make is a senior level professional. Not to distinguish any other cuts that are being asked to be made across the county. I know that they're affecting all departments, but the disparate impact that may have on our office is significant. For those reasons, I would ask that you consider and find a way to look into the budget and see if there's a remedy. I think it's also important to know that we were originally part of the public safety millage, and we were removed from that, and we've now been left out of the law enforcement millage with the idea that it may be able to be funded through other means going forward. I think that it's an important position to fund. And frankly, it would be easy for me to sit here and say, I'm at the end of my term. In many ways, I'm a lame duck. But I really want my successor, Mr. Kowalczyk, to be successful. I put a lot of time into this position. We've fought hard to build the office that we have. And I think that he's going to need that position going forward to be successful. And that's what I'm here today to ask you. So all those questions are rhetorical. I just want you to think about those things before you make a decision on that position in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for general public comment? Okay, seeing no one else for general public comment, announcements, commissioners, any announcements? Yes, sir.
I'll be real quick too. I did go to the Northern Michigan Counties Association meeting yesterday. Legislature is really not doing much at this point. I know we have very few days. I think they're going to be enacting anything for the end of the year, but there was a reminder that for the settlement funds, opiate settlement funds, you have this obligation for 6-month report. So I just want to pass that on. But I didn't attend the last meeting, which was July 15th. I fell, my injuries on July 13th didn't allow me to go, but I did get the minutes, and I brought those just to share them. I wish I could have been there for the discussion, but there's a lot of discussion on county jails. A lot of the counties, have their own villages for road patrol, but they're having issues with the cost of operating county jails. And I was surprised to find out there are some counties looking at regional jails and shared facilities. So I just have the copy of the minutes. It's not complete, but I thought you might find some interest in reading the comments. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? So moved.
Or
Recorded, we are adjourned at 7:18. We'll start the regular session in a few minutes. Short.
Did you say 15?
no,
What did we say? What did you say?
few.
Oh, shortly. Got it. Got it.
It'll be a big more than.
Oh, man, that was wild.
Thanks, Jerry.